Dr. Kannan, Group Medical Director for Dr. Mehta's Hospitals. A fun-loving person with the gift of the gab, Dr. Kannan has 33 years of experience and expertise in the field of medicine and possesses a high clinical acumen. While we lay emphasis on touching human lives through words and touch, Dr. Kannan is indeed an epitome of all of those values.
Our next panelist is Dr. Sheila Durai, Professor and Head Surgical Nursing, CMC Vellore, and also member ANEI. She has been rendering phenomenal work in the field of surgical nursing for the past 3 decades and held various positions during her tenure. We are delighted to call upon Dr. Sheila Durai to please come on to the dais.
Let's welcome Dr. Ilan Kumaran, a highly respected physician with a distinguished career spanning critical care, anesthesiology, and leadership, bringing a wealth of experience to the table and wearing multiple hats with remarkable expertise. He is a prolific scholar with over 60 publications in prestigious international journals.
It's an honor to introduce our next panelist, a true visionary in the field of human resource, Ms. Jhansi Lakshmi, General Manager, Human Resource, Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, possessing 25 plus experience in the field of human resource and organization development in healthcare industry.
Over to you, Dr. Usha.
Ladies and hello. Is it okay? Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Can you settle down quickly so that we could start the session, please? Thank you so much. To all the dignitaries seated beside me here on the dais, distinguished experts of the profession of the dais, the wonderful nurses that have come from various parts of the country to be present in this audience here today. What a fantastic event. And I think as an ANEI founder member, I feel extremely delighted and proud of how we have grown under the leadership of the great officials that make ANEI. Today, we have an interesting panel which is going to talk about the value of nurses, collaborative journey so far and ahead. I request the delegates to quickly settle down because it's very distracting from here. Please take a moment and settle down quickly. Could we have the volunteers to get them in, please? Thank you. The history of healthcare, and especially of nursing, has been epic, involving service, sacrifice, trials, triumphs, ambitions, aspirations, and so much more. Today, we all know, while the journey has been extremely fruitful, there are immense challenges that we face. There is proliferation of public-private partnership. There is the insurance boom. Technology is taking center stage. Growing consumerism, media outcry, litigation, and this ever-impending manpower crisis that we are faced with. It's such an honor for me to have such great experts, Dr. Kannan, Dr. Ellen, Dr. Sheila, Ms. Jhansi here to talk about the more pressing challenges today and how we have come this far. I think each one of you sitting here would agree with me that the healthcare landscape is a paradox. It still perpetuates hierarchy, owing to its traditional, orthodox, and paternalistic mindset. While we've come a long way here today in this era where we talk about artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, digital technologies, and we are able to provide care with mathematical accuracy and robotic precisions, we understand that the role of the nurse can never be compromised in the healthcare ecosystem. We also know that we've had a great foundation to our profession. And I think the chairperson, chief guest today spoke about Florence Nightingale, who was a statistician, a researcher, and a legend and an immortal. And I also say that so many leaders came by thereafter who have walked this uncharted path and created a great legacy today. And that's why we're here today with great pride. This being the Nurses Month, and we just concluded the Nurses Week, I say, dear Florence Nightingale, if we could bring you back home again by building a stairwell of tears and a memory lane, we all seated here would bring you back home again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I usually sit across the table and answer questions from the medical director, from the CEO, from the HR. And today I feel so privileged to be on the other side of the table and ask a few questions on a lighter note. And this to me feels like prime time television. And it is the prime time of the conference today. So hopefully we will conclude on time and have a few questions to be answered by the audience here. On that note, let me first ask the question to the medical director, Dr. Kannan. You know, medical and nursing partnership go a long way. What's your opening statement in terms of saying how important has been a nurse in your personal life?
Very happy. Am I audible? I'm very happy that I am the opening batsman, Raj Gaikwad of CSK. I must do some panel discussion.
They can't hear you. They can't hear you. Do you want this?
Good morning to you all. First of all, I thank the organization, ANEICON, opportunity to sit in front of all these wonderful, beautiful, accomplished ladies to share some of my experience. And I am very happy I am the opening batsman, Raj Gaikwad of the CSK. I must do some justice to the role. The question that is posed to me, first I must compliment Dr. Usha. He has given a question paper to all of us, listing several questions. Very interesting question to us, very insightful questions. First question is directed at me. Narrative of how a nurse has made a significant impact on your life or in your organization. I am very happy to answer this question. To make the dialogue more interesting, I will quote two anecdotes from my own life. One in my previous institution, the next in my current institution. First incident happened long ago, so long ago, about several decades back, when I was relatively young. I had a lot of hair in my scalp, up to my neck. You won't believe those days punk hair was the style. I was having a punk hair. None of you will believe it, but it is a fact. I can show you photographs also. At that point of time, I was on call duty that day. I was in the government accommodation near the hospital. So in the nursing sister called me, "Doctor, come to the hospital immediately. Your resident is managing a case. There is something wrong. Please come immediately." So because it is very near, I had a very old Lambie rickety school. It was a 1 year, 3-month-old child. I'm a pediatrician. I asked the resident, what is the problem? In one case of visa, child has come with breathlessness, acute severe asthma, I'm giving nebulization. I looked at the sister. She said, "Doctor, look at the monitor." So I looked up at the monitor. To my shock, I found the rhythm of the supraventricular tachycardia. Actually, it is a case of supraventricular tachycardia, going for congestive cardiac failure and having breathlessness, which my resident has completely missed because he was misled by the past history of bronchial asthma. So we have to push adenosine to the child. Because it is a good cardiac center, the cardiologist came, took over the child. They subsequently did the radio ablation. The child became all right. The boy is now married and he is having his own kid, and the kid is coming to me in my present institution. So this is one example of how a nursing sister by her sheer competency, is able to pick up something which the junior doctor was not able to do. That is lesson number one. I'll give you to the second thing which happened in the recent past in my current institution. It happened in the pediatric intensive care unit. Child was brought from emergency room. Diagnosis was acute gastroenteritis, dehydration, moderate to severe, with metabolic acidosis. Child was having tachypnea. So I went, the sister, I very much respect her. As soon as I entered, she said, "Sir, something wrong." I asked why. The diagnosis is acute gastroenteritis, but there is only one episode of loose motions. And so much dehydration cannot occur. And child is giving history of polyuria, passing lot of urine. It turned out to be a diabetic ketoacidosis with ketoacidosis. The increased breathing was due to ketoacidosis. Child was given insulin, handed over to our pediatric endocrinologist, became all right. Why I am quoting these two incidences? Whenever you see your nursing sisters, you please remember all the doctors that they are collaborators. They are not working under you. They are your partners in patient care. Their own rich experience will aid you in making the correct diagnosis and also arriving at a conclusion. And if you take the attitude of collaborating rather than taking a condescending attitude, not only you will benefit, your patients will also benefit. This is my personal experience. I can quote any number of examples, but madam will cut me short, for brevity of time.
Yeah.
So with this, I told you have to be grateful to your nursing sisters. They are collaborators. They are not working under you. That is the important point I want to make at this juncture.
Dr. Kannan, thank you so much. I think with your description, I was actually imagining you with a lot of hair and your rickety scooter that you mentioned. And I'm sure you've learned a lot of procedures that nurses have taught you. And I'm so glad that you spoke about something from the past where nurses were empowered to make those critical decisions to today's example. So I'm so glad that it continues as a continuum. And you work for one of the most reputed hospitals, the Mehta's Hospital, and I see Mr. Sam here all the time in nursing conferences. So I'm sure your organization is a very empowering organization to nurses. Thank you so much for those examples. Dr. Sheila, you come from a legendary organization, the CMC, right? I think when I was a little girl, I grew up listening to stories about CMC, and I had been given the opportunity to do a master's in CMC, but I didn't. So it's such a pleasure to have you on this panel. Tell me, when you were a very young nurse, kind of teachers you had and the kind of education you had, vis-a-vis what you see today, how has this transition impacted our reputation as a nursing profession and the overall healthcare system?
Thank you, Captain.
And I would
Usha.
like to have you speak about CMC and out of CMC too.
So just like Dr. Ila said, I'm imagining myself as a young, much thinner version of Sheila. And when I stepped into the portals of the College of Nursing, CMC Vellore, the one thing that people kept impacting on me was that I was chosen. Many were called, but I was chosen. And that one impact where I was made to feel valuable, I think made a huge difference in all my steps as a student nurse and continuing on to be a staff nurse and then a faculty and so forth. Looking at people who had impacted my life, I would just, because if I have to explain that, I think 1 hour and more will not be enough. So I'm just going to pick up a few instances from my life in CMC and say how these people impacted me. When I was a student nurse doing my night duty, there was this one patient who was sick and could not be revived. the patient was really sick. And there was this junior resident who told the nurses, sister, do something. The bleep is not working and the registrar is not coming. I don't know what to do. The nurses said, just relax, sit in the nurses' station, and they took on the whole thing with full force. The patient they attempted CPR, but they knew that the patient was not in a position to be revived. It was end-of-life care, so they explained to the resident that this is how we treat patients with end-of-life care. And the way they beautifully spoke to the relatives, the patient, the care that was given to the patient, though the patient's life could not be revived. I thought that was beautiful, and that made an impact for me and all that I could do for ICU patients when I was given that responsibility. Another instance was when our SICU was being remodeled. One of my HOD at that time, Dr. Punita Elilarasu, walked in to see all the final touch and everything. And as we were coming out, she looked up at all the rooms. There was a room for the doctor. There was a room for the technician. There was no room for the nurse. And she just told one sentence. Please tell Dr. whoever was the HOD at that time that there will be no nursing supervision for the ICU. And she just walked out. The next day I came in, there was a room designated as nurse's office. That made a huge impact for me. We had, one day there was this patient who was so very angry. He was very upset with the nurses, and the relative was even more upset. They were using bad words, the vocabulary was terrible, and they were really angry, and they were taking it all out on the nurse. And there was this HOD of mine at that time who was there standing there. She took the relative and the patient, made them sit in the classroom and just listen to them. I think it was almost 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And I was just there observing her, allowing them to ventilate. And then she explained to them how this was a billing problem. She will definitely take care of it immediately. It was just that one instance, and I saw how the power of listening could transform the patient's understanding. Though it was not a nursing problem, I could see how the power of communication could change decisions, could change how we interact with people. And this was Dr. Pramila Lee. So over the years, I have been mentored by them. And through the years, they have told me that it was Dr. Violet Jayachandran, who in 1960, she was our nursing superintendent. And at that time, before the integration of theory and practice took place in CMC, she realized that we need nursing leaders who could take forward the nursing service with scientific basis. And so, with her leadership, the nursing fraternity at CMC integrated the nursing education and service. And so, all the professors in the College of Nursing became the nurse managers and the HODs in the nursing service. And I could see, even as a student, I could see what I was seeing in the clinical area being taught in the classroom. And every step of the way, I have been mentored in surgical nursing, and every step of the way, if there is an advancement in stoma nursing, that would be taught to the students in the classroom. And when the students come to the clinical area, I would be very, very happy because I can just ask my surgeon, Ranjan, can we do this? Rohin, can we do this? And I get full cooperation from them. And I think if we can just excel in what we do, that's just one word. We keep excelling in whatever we do, in spite of everything around us. I think that is one hallmark which I have seen in CMC, which has brought nursing where it is today. And of course, I don't say that there are no challenges. There are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of challenges. There's a long road ahead before I can see where nursing ought to be. It's a big mountain to climb. But I'm sure together, as long as our vision is right, as long as we say, excel, be equipped, and do your best, we will get there.
I think I'll come back to you on some more questions there. We just heard the medical leadership and the nursing leadership speak about how important it is for nurses to be competent. And we also stand testament to the fact that nurses are important to clinical outcomes, to patient safety, to quality, to accreditations, to the reputation, to the reimbursement of the organization, and to the clinical practice of every doctor. So, so important. And I think today I feel very fortunate that we have equal number of 2 men on this side and 2 women on this side. So I think it's a gender neutral panel today. My next question is to the CEO, and I think as nursing heads, Doctor, we always have this challenge of putting up things to our CEOs and ensuring that we get our reimbursements and finances. Things have changed, but we've really had to work very, very hard. So I would like to ask you these very candid questions. Despite the contribution of nurses in a large way to all that I mentioned just before this, why is there a disparity in recognition and positioning? I'm not talking about your institute. I'm talking about the profession at large. Number 2, how can we as an organization ensure that nurses are prominently included in decision making, in strategy, in planning, and then get their deserving recognition?
Thank you very much. A lovely question. First of all, I wanted to thank the organizer for organizing such a beautiful event. I have been telling somebody in the morning, I have been attending many of the medical conferences, hundreds of conferences for the last 15, 20 years. When you walk into any medical conference at 9 a.m., nobody will be there except the speakers and chairpersons. Today, when I walked in around 9:15, the hall was full. That shows the enthusiasm of the people sitting in here. That's amazed me, actually. First of all, that's a congratulations to all of you. To answer your question, I can share some of my experience. I think you rightly mentioned that our institute may be different. You're absolutely right. I think our institute is different. I'm not only wearing the hat of a CEO, I am also an anesthetist and intensivist dealing with high intense critical care patients from liver transplant. So that's my background. So when I went to UK 20 years back, I booked in the NHS system for 5 years and then returned back to India 14, 15 years back. And then we have started the liver transplant program in Chennai at a high level. So we have so far completed more than 3,000 liver transplants, and I have been part of the team for quite a long time. And I have become a CEO in the last 5 years. So I kind of closely worked with the nurses for nearly 20 years in two completely different systems. One is well-established, well-oiled UK NHS system, and another one where we are growing. I think it's still a long way to say we are good in our healthcare system. So we are in an early stage of growth. That's what I would say. So to answer your question, why nursing is not well recognized? That's a very difficult question to answer because it depends what you feel. For in my heart, I value nurses, or our institute value nurses at very high level because, say if there is a liver transplant patient in the critical care unit, yeah, we know what's the impact a nurse can make in the outcome of the patient. A small mistake by a nurse can kill a patient. That will actually demoralize the whole team. Looking at the world's topmost surgeon, 20 doctors, hundreds of people involved, one mistake by a nurse can completely derail the whole pathway of the patient. So we day to day see how much of value each nurse adds into the ecosystem of the healthcare, life of the patient. Not only that, as a CEO, I also see if that patient doesn't survive, how much of revenue is going to be lost? Or if the patient stays in the ICU, what's the economical impact that patient's family will have because of the nurse's issue? So looking at this aspect, one of the areas why I'm thinking in many of the institutes, nurses are well recognized is, there are two ways to look into. One is the people involved in the system. We talk about the nurses first, and how the system sees nurses from a different angle. I spoke about my experience in the UK for 5 years. I always felt nurses were so dominant there. When maybe day 2 or day 3, one of the days, I walked into a restaurant there with a mask on, with my scrubs. And one of the nurses, I think that's the infection control nurses, walked in and say, I'm sorry, you can't walk into this canteen with this dress. You have to go back, you have to get changed. My question here is, how many nurses in our country have the capability of having these communication skills or empowered to ask any doctor, do we have this ecosystem as of now? Or maybe even if you take our hospital, we have more than 550 nurses working there. Maybe 5 to 10 nurses will have the capability or the empowerment or the communication skills to go and stop a doctor who is making a mistake. I would say this is the key area where we have to focus on. Nurses' communication skills should be improved a bit. They should be empowered more. And each and every organization should create an environment where there should be a psychological safety is available. Do you know what is psychological safety? Psychological safety means anybody working within an organization should be able to question if something goes wrong. That's the role of leadership, whether it's a CEO or nursing leadership. If we are able to create a safety environment, culture of safety or psychological safety environment, where even a nurse can be empowered to question a doctor or anybody for that matter, that's a day where the value of nurses will be recognized. That's my feel. To create that environment, I think both then need to work hard. I'm not saying only the non-nursing part, even nurses also need to work hard. I think most of this panel discussion actually was answered by Dr. Annie Grace in a talk actually. How to create a system of nursing leadership, how to upskill them, how we have to promote them as a leader. We have to teach them in communication skills. We have to teach them in economics, finance, and so many things we have to upskill them so that not only their clinical skills value is recognized, I think we should consider them as a leader. I think we need to work really hard to create that ecosystem. Once that part is improved, obviously I feel the rest of the system will start recognizing. I'm blaming slightly the nurses. I think there's a lot of work needs to be done on the nursing part to improvise a bit. If that should be the first step we need to take on. Then the rest of the system will start recognizing. I think that's a system we have created in our institute where we have empowered the nursing people and we recognize their value. We don't differentiate nurses to any other people in the system. At the same time, we need to understand the healthcare economics. Unfortunately, we are far behind in terms of compensating nurses. I think that's one of the sad part. I would say that that's a main reason for nurses going abroad, mainly for the compensation part. I think that needs to be addressed. I think we are on the way to address this situation. If you look at UK, I think one of the senior nurses' salary will be slightly above a doctor's salary in UK, in many of the hospitals. In India, I think there's a huge variation between doctor's salary and a nurse's salary. If that variation comes down, I think the whole issue will be resolved. I feel we are not too far away to reach that status because the insurance companies are supporting a lot. The number of Indian population getting insurance is higher. The spending power is going up. Some of the doctors, I think, being paid too much. Maybe something should happen in that area. Only these two things I feel should happen very soon.
Doctor, thank you so much. You are a person who's gone to the UK. You've experienced very empowered nursing there. You are a member of the liver transplant team, which is a very high-end specialty, which values the nursing contribution. So I think many of the CEOs should be clinicians who work closely with nurses to get that for nurses back. You brought out a very valid point that a lot has to be done by the nursing fraternity to empower themselves. For example, he rightly said that why wouldn't an infection control nurse walk up with courage and stop anybody in the institution from breaking their compliance to the code? So it's all about communication and it's about self-empowerment. And I think the time is right that the organizations enable that. But we still have challenges. And that question again goes to Dr. Kannan now, later then I would come back. We have a lot of disruptive behavior from doctors. I know they love this topic, right? And as a CEO seated here, the bigger the revenue generator, the higher is the non-compliance to policies. And what would one simple nurse go up and tell him, excuse me, doctor, kindly wear your scrubs right or wear your mask right? She will be thrown out of the job, including the head of nursing. And why as doctors don't you lobby and change
Look at the
this?
applause. Look at the applause.
Yes, yes, it's a fact, it's a norm. I mean, who doesn't want to be empowered? So why haven't these become a topic of conversation in medical conferences, communication, teamwork, respect for each other? Now, example, doctor said that liver transplant is a high-end specialty. Let me tell you, doctor, whenever we publish a success story in a newspaper, you will only see the surgeon. You won't even see the anesthetist or the intensivist or the nurses. Can we change all that? And how do we change that?
Well, as
Sorry for
doctor,
putting you on a spot.
very difficult question, but I'll try to answer. The amount of applause clearly shows that most of you are victims of this disruptive behavior. But I will give two counterpoints. One is, the question is disruptive behaviors from doctors. I don't think doctors are a homogeneous group. They are a heterogeneous group. No one person is similar to another person. The behavior of the doctor may vary. Some of them, as I rightly said, may be collaborative. Some of them may take a very superior condensing attitude. The attitude of the doctor is determined by two factors. One, I should definitely say, is his chronological age. As you advance in age, you realize, as a doctor, you know nothing. As a doctor, whatever you try to diagnose, unless the laboratory and imaging sciences come to your rescue, you will not be able to make a single diagnosis. That is the reality of today. Point number two is, you also realize that without the cooperation of nursing community and the paramedics, you will not be able to treat your patients effectively. All this wisdom comes as you advance in age, as you start losing more and more hair on your skull. So senior doctor, generally, my observation, because I am being a medical director, I am dealing with doctors day in and day out. I am seeing all kinds of people, crackpots, crankpots, people with wisdom, very intelligent people, smart and crooked, smart and honest, different personalities. So, number one is maturity comes with age. As they advance in age, they realize. But younger people, they tend to be brash, aggressive, they think they know everything. So how to remedy? I will come to it later. Point number two, again it depends on the unit. For example, I will give you an outstanding example in Mehta Hospital. We are one of the biggest neonatal centers in the city. If you go to the Department of Neonatology, I have a lot of respect for the nurses there because they take care of the children, including preemies weighing less than 600 grams, 800 grams. The entire care, including feeding, is taken care of by them. And the camaraderie between the doctors, neonatologists and nurses in that unit is outstanding. In fact, I'm having problem because whenever I try to poach into the area of neonatal nursing, the HOD will come and bang into a room and start fighting with me. So it depends on the unit also. Some of the units at neonatology, pediatricians, as all of you know, are very kind, compassionate. Please give you applause. We never deal. We know we depend on the nurses. The nurses only observe and tell us, sir, the child is lethargic. Sensorium is not normal. You came yesterday morning, when you walked up, you are coming only today. See properly, That they gently tell us. So it depends on the unit also. And some of the units, Dr. Cherin is there. Cardiovascular surgeon thinks they are God because they are operated. I don't know the equation. So like unit-wise, it differs. Now, what is the solution for this? The solution lies in the organization. In Mehta's, we have got a vibrant induction program. As soon as any in-house doctor joins, the first thing is here everybody is equal. Number one, nurses are not inferior to you. Number two, any miscommunication to nursing, paramedical, technician will be viewed very serious. The only area of problem we have is visiting consultants over whom we have not much of control. But if any incident happens, we interfere post-mortem. We call the consultant. Normally when the consultant meet me, seeing my face, my scalp, he recognizes seniority, has a lot of respect in medical field. So he comes down and we advise him not to use harsh words. So there is also another thing. Historically, when I was a student, when the doctor entered, the nurses will tremble with fear because every day you will scold them. Now things are changing. Historically, we were under British rule. Still, some of us are not able to get over the mentality that Westerners are superior to us. Now only we are superior to them. So historically, what legacy was there, treating people with contempt, is slowly getting watered down. Now people are realizing the nurses are a vital part or the anchor part of the healthcare, and doctors are developing respect, more and more respect. I think things will definitely change. I'm assuring you, it is only a question of time. My only request to you, as Dr. correctly pointed out, you have to develop two things. One is competency. Develop your skills and competency, so doctors will automatically respect you. Number two, have self-confidence and courage. As somebody caught him in the canteen and sent him back to the scrub area, back to the theater, you should have the courage to speak your mind and to stand your ground. Even your administrator or somebody higher in the organization asks, you tell him politely, sir, I think I am right. That is why. Have courage. Unless you try to break your own shackles, you will never get liberation and freedom. So that is the two things I want to point out. But only thing I want to assure you is things are definitely changing. And the future, I think, there will be a situation similar to what is there in the Western countries, which is a healthy thing, which we should all follow.
Thank you, doctor. I think any nurse would love to work with you. I'm sure. Number one. Yes. Number one. And number two, doctor has given us a lot of remedies, and he said all kinds of doctors make a heterogeneous group. I don't want to use the same names that he mentioned. Nevertheless, he also categorized doctors like cardiac surgeons are gods, pediatricians are kind, So, but the most valid point that he brought about is once you enhance your knowledge and skills and your competence and your communication, I think respect is automatically given. And you will notice that doctors never present with a disruptive behavior without a reason. It's only when there is an error, when there is harm, or there's something which is non-compliant, And number two, if there's something that is not up to expectation. So again, the ball is back in our court to ensure that we rise above the standards and not be victims of any abuse. And today organizations have a lot of policies where nurses can speak up, get justice, get their grievance addressed, and I'm sure, as doctor said, the future is bright. Now to you.
I just want to add one more point if you.
Yeah.
So now if you look at the current status, if you look at the supply demand, nurses are having upper hand. Yeah? If you don't like an organization, please leave the organization. If the organization doesn't have the culture of supporting the nurses, nurses are one of the key or crucial healthcare member team right now who can easily get job anywhere. Even it may be difficult for me to get a job outside. I think whoever is sitting here, you can get a job in any other hospital tomorrow. Choose your hospital. You have the, this is the time where nurses could choose where they can work. Yeah, if you don't like the organizational culture, this culture needs to be created at the top level leadership, including the CEO, medical director, even the nursing head. If three of them are not able to create this culture, please don't work in this organization. Point number one. If this culture is created in an organization like us, we have many mechanisms where there'll be a grievance committee, there'll be a 360-degree feedback, and we closely...
Okay, I'm submitting my resignation from Apollo and joining you, sir.
Can you send an email to Apollo chairman, please?
Many of them said no there, so I'll have to take the votes from there too. All right. I'll take a question on her. Madam Jhansi, thank you so much for being here. Our entire struggle as a nursing administrator is about manpower, right? Whether it's the right number, whether it's the right competence, it's the pay, privilege, perks that we offer to nurses, which is so important for me as an administrator and my colleagues sitting here to deliver the best outcomes. So what do you think should be the strategy to ensure, like I have suggested a lot of probable solutions which I feel is important, but risk-taking is averse when we see that an HR guy does not really want to make the first mover change in the country. So what could be the possible solutions within the challenges that we have today for each of us to take home?
Good afternoon, all. First, I would like to thank Annie to give me this opportunity to be here, and with the admirable and adorable theme, transformational leadership, which is very, very need of the hour. We are talking from the decades, if we see the transformation of nurses, the venues have changed a lot. When we were talking about clinical nurses from the nursing, now it has been diversified to many avenues you have into research, into critical care nurses, insurance nurses. As well, if you could recollect, we have to remember the nurse who has selected for civil services 2 years back from Kerala. But when we are talking about the patient outcomes, when we are talking about retention, yes, there is a big lacunae. And when we are talking about the competency of the nurses, those who are lacking the confidence to go and question a doctor, are we creating that confidence to the nurses? We are much concentrating with the urban nurses. What about semi-urban and rural nursing education, how it is? I would like to request government organizations or private organizations, including Annie, can we look into it? Like what is the quality? Whether the nurses are coming out with behaviorally competent, professionally competent, culturally competent, and how much time we are spending to make the nurses confident with commitment. Are we creating that culture of commitment with confidence? When a nurse can be confident, that go and person. Are we investing that much time to train them, to give them the commitment? Yes, definitely there is a much place is there for their salary increments or something else, and day by day or periodically it is increasing. But I feel like still there should be a lot of awards and rewards, recognition programs for the specified critical care nurses and other areas. So Uh, the retention when we talk about, yes, nurses are flying. Whatever, as Madam said initially, and even Mrs. Gracie was telling, like even a small difference is there, they are going. But is it the main reason? What is the transformation of nurses? They are hand-holding the juniors. Is it only ethically transformation of the commitment to the patient care and to the institution is happening? All these things, I think, like we have to discuss.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Sheila, you wanted to say something?
Was thinking that came to situations where nurses do not like the workplace they are in. Doctor proposed that they could leave the institution. I would say that nurses first need to speak up. Need to first speak up. Nurses need to advocate for each other. Nursing loyalty is the one principle that can change the whole situation, I would say.
I think Dr. Gyani just left, otherwise we would have definitely have our issues of salary and stuff that we are currently faced with being lobbied by important people who are associated with ANEI so that, you know, the future of the nurses is brighter in this country. So I think there is a lot of work that's happening by the ANEI officials towards that. As we are coming up close to time, I just wanted to ask each of you seated in this panel here today, how would you lobby with ANEI to promote nursing in this country beyond your hospital? Give us a few strategies and solutions.
Okay. We would like the help of coordination with ANEI in few aspects. Number one, as Madam rightly pointed out, as the nursing leader conglomeration, please ensure that there are uniform quality standards of nursing graduates for different institutions. Because even at the recruitment stage, when they are getting recruited, we see a difference in standards between people who come from government institutions. I'm not telling about reputed private. I'm telling a general statement. Quality definitely differs. And our preference is for mostly for reputed private institution or a government institution. So, as nursing leaders, can you go into the field of nursing education to ensure uniformity of standards so that the nursing graduates who come out will have some basic minimum knowledge so they can be supported in the organization in which they join to achieve levels of competency so that they can stand equal to the doctor. And as he told the two anecdotes, unless you have got competency, you can't talk back. So can you help us in ensuring quality education among different diverse nursing training institutions across the country?
So you misunderstood my question. You misunderstood my question. My question is, how would you as a reputed entity lobby with ANEI to make a difference of nursing in the country? How can you help us?
Okay. Okay, one thing what I thought is a thought process, how I will lobby with ANEI to make a difference in nursing.
For the nurses in this country.
Definitely,
I'm sure
you're
a reputed doctor, you've come a long way, you've such credible experience, you have influence. How would you help?
Definitely one aspect of ANEI I would like to take up is the emoluments part of the nurses, which you have to fight with the administrators, you have to fight with the owners of the hospital to raise the standards of emoluments as an organization that you have to take as a top priority. Somebody, he herself was mentioning that the salary of nurses is less than that of drivers, which is a very, very sad commentary on the state of affairs in the country. So that is one thing you have to take it upon a top priority. That is my opinion.
Sir, I see my secretary taking notes, Dr. Vincey's, so she will get back to you on how you can help take this influence forward. Dr. Ellen, the same question to you.
So if you ask me how I can help, I'm going to still stick to training aspect. If you look at the medical side, Of course, there are post-graduation courses, MD and all these courses are there. At the same time, we have DNB, where all private hospitals, good quality private hospitals, all the DNB equivalent to MD courses are available in a good quality private hospitals. I'm not sure about nursing. Nursing is still around, it's just like a separate entity. To get approval for us to study a BSc nursing course in a good quality private hospital, I'm not sure that option is existing. Or maybe there are too many rules and regulations where you look for the land, you look for the property, so many things. But we have to relax certain rules and regulations where high quality or NABH accredited hospitals should be empowered to start helping nursing training in an official way, like starting a BSc nursing courses and all this stuff. I think that is lacking in our country at this point of time. This is about the clinical quality. If you talk about non-clinical skills, communication skills, language skills, financial skills, I feel at some point of time, if you look at UK, there are many CEOs come from nursing background. But I think it's very rare to see in our country, nurses are becoming at the top of the institute. We have to break those kind of myths that nurses can't become a CEO. I'm not sure how many of them are there in the country, maybe very few maybe actually.
Gretchen
I
Uthai
appreciate
sitting there, CEO of, at 72, ma'am, and still going.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I think we need more and more nurses coming into leadership position at the top of the institute. If you can bring that scenario, the whole thing will change. I think I'm happy to be part of your initiatives in case we are going to
Thank
do
you
something
so
there.
much. Your message?
I would like to request all the nursing leaders to transform your leadership skills, where the juniors will come up with the confidence, with the competency of whatever the clinical skills or life skills. Even life skills are very important, where they are doing to express and project themselves. What they are doing, what they need, they have to be confident enough to make it and utilize the opportunities what they have in the hospital. No nurse will be asked like you can leave. We would like to request and welcome all the nurses to associate with our hospital. And we say like, I'm feeling very proud to say like in our hospital, we encourage the nurses to upgrade their qualification and all. So I request all the nurses to commit it to your profession with enthusiasm and upskilling yourself. Your self-enthusiasm and self-accountability, all these things will make you competent. When you are competent enough, you will be confident. Let us go ahead with that.
You had a meteoric career. So what's your message to the team?
I think a huge role of nursing is self-regulation in this aspect of improving the value of nursing. We need to self-regulate in all aspects in terms of entry into nursing, in terms of credentialing, in terms of licensure, our accreditation, how each and every individual nurse can be given the work environment and can be given the opportunities and the resources to develop and perform at their best. If each individual nurse can be given that opportunity, a group of nurses together will rise up to take nursing to a different level, I would say. And self-regulation in all these aspects, when we identify that something is wrong, we need to take up the onus, the responsibility that we lack in this area. Let's improve, let's empower, and let's go ahead instead of trying to blame someone else. I think that is one onus. Another aspect is specialization. We have a wealth of opportunity around us. We have so much of a world of changing scenario. The healthcare is changing. We are no more in the area where the traditions and conventions of yesterday will work. And we need to upgrade and upskill and specialize. And you see an opportunity, if you can make a change in patient care, go ahead. There will be obstructions, but go ahead and persist and persevere in that. And someday there will be a change. We have opportunities not just in clinical areas, but in non-clinical areas. Over the years, I think I have helped in designing the clinical areas of maybe so many, more than 10 clinical areas. And the recent one, when we had to design an ICU, we sat and drew up like architects. We could do that because over the years. So there are nurse engineers who will contribute to patient care, to clinical area. There are, nurses, we need to be at the top in terms of statistics, data. We do not know how much we contribute because we are not calculating our input. So let's specialize into areas. When we had an opportunity for a nurse leader to take up the operation theatre, I put a person who had an MBA in that, and she made a huge difference there. So I think we need to look out for opportunities where we can develop, specialize, branch out, and use every opportunity to do the best for the organizations where we work in and for each of the patients that we care for.
Thank you so much. And my message to the youngsters seated here, I think you're very, very fortunate because it's a borderless world with a boundless opportunity. And last 2 decades, the country has seen tremendous progress, whether it is patient safety, quality, and people have come together as leaders to walk the uncharted path and bring the healthcare to what it is today. And we are extremely proud that we as nursing leaders, many of them seated here, and I think Annie has been a powerful force to bring people together under one roof. And we have contributed to the growth of this country. And that's why today India is prominently placed on the map of the world as a healthcare destination. And I think each of us feel extremely proud. So it is for these young nurses seated here to understand that today you owe something back to the profession. And I think every individual seated here spoke about knowledge, competence, skill, communication, and empowerment. The enterprise is ready. The healthcare ecosystem is ready to give you this. There is no single defining action. There will be no killer innovation. There will be no solitary breakthrough. There will be no magical or miracle moment. It will be a relentless pursuit of hard work. So we must set ourselves out with an obsessive optimism and a compelling compassion to make the nursing profession what it richly deserves. And I think I'm so happy that people, many of us seated here today, leave behind a great legacy for young nurses where you will not be judged by social hierarchy or by sexual stereotyping or your gender or your race. So today, nursing has arrived in this country, and I think the only thing that we can do to contribute to the larger aspect of our country while we celebrate, I think our president spoke about 2047. Aren't we proud that when we celebrated the Amrit Mahotsav and the tricolor adorned the blue skies of this country, that we as nurses have come a long way. So the mantle rests on the younger generation here today. On that note, I think we are very proud to be nurses. We matter to every single aspect of the healthcare ecosystem in this country, be it in the urban area, be it in the rural area, be it in specialties, and to the reputation and reimbursement of the entire nation. I started at 11:22, so I have 3 more minutes. I told you that, 11:22, and we still have 3 more minutes. And I'm very happy that we had such a wonderful panel here who could speak on diverse topics. So allow 1 or 2 questions, please. I know we're running late. Any question? Mr. Ratan, you're seated here. You are a great advocate for nurses, right? Thank you so much for that. I saw Mr. Sam walk around most of the time. Yes, our president always has a question and an answer too. Our former president. That's unfair. I asked for 1 hour for the panel. Questions? Youngsters, you don't ask questions. Silence is fatal. We spoke about communication. And especially the people seated at the back row, never ask questions. Second row. First row, second row will always ask a question. And I hope the question is not to me and it is to the panelists who have the answers for all the questions.
Ma'am, thank you. Uh, it cannot be question, it can be opinion, but you can take it as a question. I think we have discussed all the aspects of all the areas and very nice points came out with the discussion as a concluding thing. But again, one more point is missing, that is the resource supply chain. The demand of nurses is very, very high and supply is very, very less. So after 12th, nursing is a very nice profession. This kind of marketing is not happening. So is it necessary to market a profession as awareness in the society?
I think, good question. Demand supply, I think cost, everything will be dealt with in the coming session. So we didn't want to steal the thunder. Who can advocate and market for nursing other than nurses? So it's our responsibility to reach back to schools, colleges, to society, to community and say nursing is a great profession.
But I think, ma'am, like what platform we are providing at this level can be conducted in a conference manner or something. Is it possible?
I think every individual has to take lead. It cannot be one individual, one hospital, one entity.
Madam Usha,
I just want to add
tell
only
you,
one point here.
Madam Usha, I wanted to tell you, Sonali Tambe, she was one of my CNS, and she does such a good job of going to remote area in Maharashtra and promoting and counseling parents to send their daughters as nurses, because Maharashtra is a place where they do not send for nursing. So because she advocates for that issue, she very closely, strongly feels it towards her heart.
Great.
Thank you, Sonali.
Let's give her a big hand and let every nurse become an ambassador.
I'm really sorry. I know when the Q&A opens, everybody wants the mic. I'm really sorry. Please take the questions with the panelists when they are out for lunch break. I'm really sorry for that. Because we really have to keep the time.
We are on time, Tangam.
No, you are on time. They are thinking they can ask a lot of questions. I think.
Thank you, Dr. Usha Banerjee, and to all the panelists. What a wonderful session. May I request all the panelists, along with the moderator, to pose at the photo corner, please? That's it, sir.